What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. As always, I'm your co-host, Donovan Quick, and we got some breaking news for y'all. So, Christian Wilkins was just released from the Las Vegas Raiders. We lost him in free agency. As a Dolphins fan, we lost him in free agency last year to Las Vegas as he signed a 5-year contract worth $110 million with over 54 and a half guaranteed. Now, over 37 million of that is potentially off the board because of the injury that he sustained. And that injury and how they're dealing with it is actually a huge part of why he was released, because they disagreed on how to handle his injury and his recovery. The Raiders wanted him to get a surgery. He had a Jones fracture. I believe he already had a surgery, but with how it's progressed, he's back in a walking boot. They wanted him to get another surgery, which happened after several opinions from different doctors. And Christian Wilkins' camp, they do not want him to get a surgery. He does not want to have a surgery. And so they were just in a dispute about that. It's been simmering over for a few months now, and finally just came to a boiling point, and the Raiders are trying to cite some kind of clause in his contract to void the rest of his guaranteed money. And so that is going to be shaping up to be a huge fight over that. That being said, now Christian Wilkins becomes a free agent. He's not going to be signing for the same money that he just signed, because he missed basically all of last season. He only played 5 games before suffering that Jones fracture, which for a defensive lineman who is very explosive is important to not have injured lower body. And a Jones fracture will definitely hurt your burst, especially not being able to play and not having a good recovery with it. So that being said, this is what we call a Grier special. Grier loves his injured, underrated guys that are cheaper than they should be. Hence why we got James Daniels on such a cheap deal compared to all the other guards this offseason. Yet, James Daniels was probably the second or third best guard when he was healthy, but he's coming off a torn ACL. And he hasn't even practiced yet. So at that point, that's when he becomes cheaper. It's the same thing with Christian Wilkins. He's still recovering, and you also have to be on his side of things and go over his physicals and understand, hey, you're going to need this surgery, or we can't sign you, or we're okay with you not getting the surgery as long as you're okay with these clauses in your contract that say, hey, we want you to have the surgery. You're opting not to. We're okay with that. But if you miss time or you re-injure it, it voids these certain guarantees. Or if you have, it leads to more incentive pay, kind of like Bradley Chubb's contract this year, where it's heavily incentivized. So based on playing time, sacks, PBUs, tackles for loss, etc., etc. So that being said, those are your two options for signing Christian Wilkins right now. Incentive or heavily voidable to protect your own ass. Now, the Dolphins have been very, very cheap this offseason. In fact, we only have $2 million left in cap space right now. Part of it is due to they do not want to restructure Tua or Tyreek Hill's contracts, which from my research that I did over the cap, if they restructured both of those players, we would have an additional at least $35 million. I believe it was over $40 million total in cap space if they restructured those two players. But when you restructure those two players, then you give them more guarantees and you push money down the line further. So Tyreek Hill, he becomes older. Tua, if he gets injured again, you don't want that money on the books. You want to try to go and get a player that's going to be able to, sit there and stand and actually play. I love Tua. I think he's going to be healthy this season. Fingers crossed. But you still have to protect your own ass. That's just what you have to do. And that's exactly the shithole that we're in right now. And we can still use defensive line help. We still need to pay Zach Sealer, so I understand that part of it. But we just let this man walk because we didn't want to sign him a year early. We're worse than the Dallas Cowboys, because the Dallas Cowboys, they procrastinate on paying these players, and then they end up paying them a crap ton of money. Whereas for us, we procrastinate, and then we let them walk. And that's exactly the case with Javon Holland, Brandon Jones, and luckily we didn't wait for Jalen Waddle, but and obviously Christian Wilkins. Let them all walk because we didn't sign them early. Jonnu Smith, we should have signed almost immediately after the season, and I made a video on that, and we didn't. Then some other tight ends signed, and he wanted a little bit more money than that. He wanted, 13, 14 million, which for our fourth option on team, like I explained earlier, just not feasible when you have so little cap space. All that being said, the Dolphins should explore their options with Christian Wilkins. There aren't that many options, but he's going to be fighting the Raiders for money. He doesn't want surgery on his foot, so you need to do your due diligence, and make sure that your medical staff is all over it, and you understand what you need to do to get him to be the all-pro, Pro Bowl player he was at one point. Given he never made the Pro Bowl, he was never an all-pro, but he played like it. He was severely underrated. He kind of got that Miami Dolphins treatment where you're on the Dolphins, you don't get a Pro Bowl. That's just what it is. That being said, dude, it is insane out there right now. That defensive line market has skyrocketed. Players are getting paid over $30 million a year. Christian Wilkins, I believe, was around 26 million. No, not even that. He wasn't even getting paid that. It was a 5-year, 110. Yeah, he wasn't even getting paid that. He was getting paid less than 25. So, it you gotta pay the players that are worth it. He was getting paid less than 25. Now this year, players getting paid over 30. You go and you sign him to a deal that is heavily incentivized, that doesn't go against your cap. You bring him back to Miami, where he spent 90% of his career so far, and let him ball out. We need the defensive line help, because besides Zach Sealer and Kenneth Grant, we really don't have anybody back there. And now you can bring back the salt and pepper, and Kenneth Grant there as your backup for a year or two. Hopefully you sign Sealer, and then your defensive line problems, they go from, well, we have a good edge, but our interior is like, we still don't know what Kenneth Grant's going to be. I have high hopes for him, but we don't know. We know what Christian Wilkins is, when healthy at least. We know his relationship with Zach Sealer is fantastic, and their communication is fantastic, and that helped us have one of the better defensive fronts when they were on the field together. So we need to, if we can make that happen, we go from having the only position group on the team that I didn't like was, or liked, I should say, was our edge rushers, to now I like our entire defensive front and worrying about our secondary, which video coming tomorrow about the secondary. But yeah, it is rough. It is rough for the Miami Dolphins defense, and we can use all the help we can get. And this is a Greer special. We love injured players. We do. We sign them all the time. Give me an injured Christian Wilkins. Let our medical staff do their magic on him. Get him back to healthy. Put him back in the salt and pepper shakers and let them rock. I love it. Let's bring him home. Go Dolphins. Deuces.